In just a few hours' time, we will witness the legendary Manny Pacquiao step through the ropes for the 72nd time as a professional. And very likely that it will be the last time that we see Manny Pacquiao step in the ring. Welcome everybody back to the Tomatolito Show. And yes, we are just hours away. Both fighters made weight yesterday. Yordenis Ugas, Manny Pacquiao is the new fight at welterweight. Of course, Errol Spence was originally slated to be Manny Pacquiao's dance partner. He ended up falling out approximately 11 days ago with an injury to his eye, which requires surgery. Several reports came out 11 days back as related to retinal damage. Some even mentioned that he suffered a detachment of the retina. He ended up having surgery, of course, within a couple of days of that report coming out, and Manny Pacquiao decided to go forward. The new opponent was named, and that is Cuban sensation Yordenis Ugas. Of course, these two have a bit of a history between the two without even having done much, all thanks to the sanctioning body, the WBA. Where's the drama? Where the drama creates, where the story builds for this fight is thanks to the WBA and no thanks to the WBA, the confusing WBA and its many titles as it relates to each division. They have 4 to 5 titles per each division, if not more, 4 or 5 at least that they recognize, and that in the version of a gold, of a interim, a world, a super champion, It's hard to keep up, right? A regular champion, I think, is the other one. Hard to keep up with the WBA and as it relates to each division and who the man is that represents their division in each weight class. The drama here between these two fighters goes back to just about a year back or so, where Manny Pacquiao, the last time that we saw him active was against Keith Thurman, and that was in 2019. So he ends up getting the Super World Championship title in that fight. He earns the title. That is Manny Pacquiao. 2019, he beats Keith Thurman convincingly. It was an impressive showing by Manny Pacquiao. Each time out that we see Manny Pacquiao now, whether you've been a longtime fan of his or a hater, it doesn't matter. At this point, if you're not watching Manny Pacquiao, especially tonight, if you're not watching with the lens of appreciation as to what he's accomplished, as to what he's done in his boxing career as a professional, I don't know how you could call yourself a boxing fan. It's nothing short of amazing, regardless of the reports and the speculation and all this, that there was doping back in the day and in the Marquez era and you name it. Whatever it was, he's still here. He's still fighting. He's stepping into the ring for the 72nd time. He comes in with a 62 win record, 7 defeats, 2 of those draws. 39 of the 62 victories have come by way of knockout. 3 of his 7 defeats, he's been stopped in the ring. Of course, the most notorious of those was the Juan Manuel Marquez in their last outing against one another, where he was knocked out viciously, and it looked like he had suffered some heavy damage. That was, of course, back in 2012. And that was a back-to-back loss. Previous to that, he had lost a questionable decision, lost to Tim Bradley. And then from there, he went on to lose to Floyd Mayweather, of course, decision loss there, to Jeff Horn, of course, really questionable decision out in Australia. And then he's been on a roll. He fought Lucas Matisse, he fought Adrian Broner, and then Keith Thurman. Big profile fight after fight after fight. And now he gets into the ring against Yordenis Ugas. Of course, this was supposed to be Errol Spence, and 2 years removed from his last victory and last fight against Keith Thurman. So the controversy. Yordenis Ugas at that time set as he had the interim version to the WBA title or the WBA regular version. which he ended up fighting for. It was a vacant title that he ended up fighting for against Abel Ramos. That was back last September. He ends up getting that version. Manny Pacquiao was named as the champion in recess. So Yordenis Ugas was the one to represent that organization at the welterweight division. And then you have, of course, Errol Spence with 2 titles, 2 of the 4 titles, and then Terence Crawford with the 4th title. So Manny Pacquiao's out of the picture. Yordenis Ugas, earlier in the year, it was speculated, and I even spoke to Errol Spence back in March, where he was trying to open negotiations where Yordenis Ugas at that time for a summer showdown against him, try to get his hand on the WBA version title that Yordenis Ugas was holding. That would give Errol Spence, with a successful victory there against Ugas, that would have given him 3 titles. And then, of course, he was going to seek the Terence Crawford fight that we've all been clamoring for, and seek the undisputed status by defeating Terence Crawford should he be successful, right? But that was the game plan that Errol Spence had. Talks ended up falling through right around that time. Terence Crawford was set, or at least it was speculated that he was in talks with Manny Pacquiao. Ryan Garcia at the 135-pound division was in talks against legendary Manny Pacquiao, supposedly, as it was reported. Neither one of those came to fruition. All of a sudden, the carpet is pulled from under both of those fighters' feet, and Errol Spence, rather than stepping into the ring and having the announcement of him against Ugas in a unification bout, ends up putting his titles on the line against the legendary Manny Pacquiao, and the boxing world goes crazy. This is just months back. Everybody's speculating Pacquiao could do this, Errol Spence is going to do this, the old generation, the new generation, what have you. So Manny Pacquiao's team petitions to the WBA to be reinstated as their champion, as the super champion, and he was denied. When it was all said and done, the WBA denies him, ends up elevating Yordenis Ugas' status as the super champion, as the champion, the welterweight champion that the WBA will recognize as the man that's going to be representing that organization, and they denied Manny Pacquiao's petition. Therefore, Manny Pacquiao's fight tonight was going to be against Errol Spence as a challenger to Errol Spence's 2 titles. Yordenis Ugas was going to be on the undercard against Marcos Maldana's younger brother, Fabian Maldana. TNT, I believe, is his nickname. He ended up suffering an injury as well. He pulls out. That was Yordenis Ugas going to be putting his title on the line as the co-main event to Manny Pacquiao against Errol Spence in the main event, and hopefully Yordenis Ugas would come out successful, or whoever came out successful of that fight, whether him or Maldana, the less experienced younger brother of Marcos Maldana. If he came out with the upset over Yordenis, or Yordenis was expected to win that fight, then Errol beating Manny Pacquiao would solidify a unification there for 3 titles, or Manny Pacquiao beating Errol Spence against Yordenis Ugas. We would have seen it at that point. Errol Spence suffers the injury, goes into surgery. This is just 11 days ago. We see it across, regardless of the sport, we see it across the board where fighters, when there's a last minute change, the stand-in fighter, or the fighter that's left without a dance partner, often pulls the plug himself. Delays the fight by another month, another 2 months, because he wasn't properly preparing for this new opponent that was going to be lined up for him, or what their game plan was just solely on the previous opponent, the guy that fell out. Therefore, they weren't going to be prepared in time for this guy, so let's delay it by a month or 2 months, or pull out of the fight completely because they're not interested in that fighter. We see it all the time. We've seen it in the past all the time. This wasn't the case, and this is the legend that is Manny Pacquiao, right? This is what you could appreciate about Manny Pacquiao and the old school fighters. They're cut from a different cloth. He was prepared. He's been in camp. He's ready. He was willing to take the challenge regardless of who it is. And now we will have 2 fighters, one in recess as deemed by the WBA, the previous holder of this title, and the current holder of this title in the welterweight division of as far as we're speaking of the WBA sanctioning body. Both of these guys are going to meet in the ring, and we will have one rightful owner to this title by the end of tonight. That is the storyline behind this, as complicated as it is. It was mostly done by the WBA. Of course, there's recent reports now. This past week, we've seen a lot of reports that the WBA is starting to pull titles from fighters, and they're starting to clean up the mess that they have, and trying to reorganize the way that they recognize champions and the way that they hand out titles, because there's just too many, and everybody finally figured it out, or at least they're finally listening to people's complaints, and other sanctioning bodies not willing to sanction their fighters or their titles in unification style bouts against people carrying the WBA title, not recognizing that it's an actual championship fight or mandatory style fights, because there's no validity. They're doubting the validity of the many titles that the WBA, or the many champions that the WBA has named to date. So the WBA is starting to reorganize that, and this fight is the reason why. The Manny Pacquiao Yordenis Ugas debacle is the reason why the WBA is starting to address the many issues that they've created around the boxing world in the recent years, or at least in the last few decades, I guess, since they got into this business of everybody's a champion, or have as many champions out there as possible. So Manny Pacquiao stepping in 62-7-2 with 39 knockouts. 3 of those 7 defeats have where he's been stopped. Yordenis Ugas is stepping into the ring with a 26 win record. 12 of those 26 victories have come by way of knockout. 4 defeats. His most recent loss was back in 2019, just months prior to the Manny Pacquiao Keith Thurman fight. He was defeated by Sean Porter. Of course, he lost a split decision, and that was a fight in which they fought for the WBC welterweight title. So Sean Porter came out victorious with that. Yordenis Ugas got back on the winning track later that year, just 4 months later, against Omar Figueroa Jr. He ends up giving him his defeat. Mike Dallas Jr. was next. That was a 7th round stoppage for Yordenis Ugas, and then a split decision, which he beat Abel Ramos, and that was for that vacant WBA version of the welterweight title that he ended up winning, and the one that he's walking into the ring with. Now he faces Manny Pacquiao, where it seemed like they had sideswiped them and moved them aside so Errol Spence would fight Manny Pacquiao. He stepped aside. They were basically just moving him aside, and now the opportunity of a lifetime has presented itself, where he has stepped in and he's going to be facing the legend that is Manny Pacquiao. Whether you love him or hate him, I hope you watch this fight, because it's likely, there's a lot of reports out there that are claiming that this may very well be the last time that we see Manny Pacquiao in the ring. I, for one, was a huge hater of Manny Pacquiao in years past, and I will admit it to you. I was a big fan of Juan Manuel Marquez, and I grew up a huge Oscar De La Hoya fan. So when he demolished Oscar De La Hoya in De La Hoya's last fight, it brought me to a whole new level of disdain towards Manny Pacquiao. So I was always pulling for Juan Manuel Marquez to beat Manny Pacquiao. I was one of the ones that you would hear out there screaming robbery and this and that, because those fights were just so close. So when he knocked out Manny Pacquiao, I was beyond excited, I guess, or happy for Juan Manuel Marquez that he finally got to prove it. If he couldn't get the judges to see it his way, then he had to pull the stop one way or another. Of course, you're happy for Juan Manuel Marquez, but that scene where Manny Pacquiao's laying down, face down on the mat, and his wife is crying, running to the ring, and everybody's panicking, and Manny Pacquiao's not responding was horrible to see, because we've seen accident after accident after accident in the ring, and that could have very well been one of those nasty or sad stories in the boxing world. Lucky for everybody that it didn't turn out that way. Manny Pacquiao came to his senses, and look, he's still active. Of those fighters that we're mentioning, he's the one that's active. Floyd Mayweather's gone, Juan Manuel Marquez is gone, De La Hoya's gone, even though he's trying to make a comeback here in a month's time, but he's been gone for 12 years or so. Manny Pacquiao's still active. How do you not appreciate that? And he's still fighting the top names. He's not just staying active to stay active. He's fighting the top names. So that's the exciting part about it. Yordenis Ugas, of course, has had a solid career. He was a recognized amateur. He was a bronze Olympic medalist, and he has 4 defeats in his professional career. His professional career hasn't transitioned as well as he would have liked. He's had some hiccups there in the career, especially look at that split decision loss that he had to Sean Porter. That was a questionable one, but of course, if you're a Sean Porter fan, you're going to see it his way. If you're a Ugas fan, you're going to see it his way whenever it goes to judges, especially this year and last year. But this year alone, we've seen how many horrendous decisions rendered by the hands of the judges, and that, in my opinion, was such a close fight that good for Sean Porter that he got it right, because hell, Sean Porter's a hell of a fighter, and he presents trouble for anybody that steps in the ring with him. And he's an enjoyable fighter to watch. I thought Yordenis Ugas did enough to pull out that fight. But I see that very same Yordenis Ugas that faced Sean Porter stepping into the ring tonight. How does this fight play out? How do you see this fight playing out? The way that I'm looking at this fight right now, the taller fighter, Yordenis Ugas, similar height to Errol Spence, actually has less reach than Errol Spence, as hard as it is to believe. I figured when I'm analyzing Yordenis Ugas, he's kind of a mixture, and he's going to approach Manny Pacquiao, or at least Manny Pacquiao is going to be facing a mixture of a Keith Thurman and Antonio Margarito. So he could go back in his memory bank and figure out what it was like to face Antonio Margarito in the taller fighter, the heavier fighter with a little bit heavier punching and longer reach. Yes, Yordenis Ugas has longer reach than Manny Pacquiao, but just by a matter of a couple inches, whereas Errol Spence actually had reportedly about 5 inch of a reach advantage over Manny Pacquiao. 3 more inches than what Yordenis Ugas, the threat that he will possess as far as reach goes. But he is going to be the heavier fighter. If you look at Yordenis Ugas' build against Manny Pacquiao, you're going to be having more than likely a middleweight across from Manny Pacquiao tonight by the time he's hydrated. Whereas Manny Pacquiao will stay fairly close to the welterweight, and he's going to be between the welterweight and super welterweight. So between the 147 and 154 is where Manny Pacquiao will come in, whereas Yordenis Ugas will likely walk in as a middleweight, if not heavier. Maybe at a catchweight, middleweight, super middleweight type weight. He's going to hydrate quite big. He's got a big body. He's a muscular dude with a very, very big build. So he carries a lot more water weight. He carries a lot more muscle. And that's why I'm deeming him to be more of a Margarito style puncher. He's slower than Keith Thurman. He punches hard, but he's similar to Keith Thurman as far as the speed of his delivery. His footwork is a little bit slower, but similar angles to what Keith Thurman posed for Manny Pacquiao. He circles a ring. He moves around a lot. His footwork is kind of similar, but maybe a tad slower than Keith Thurman. And also his delivery is just a tad slower, but similar fashion in successions and flurries and in combinations. Those combinations come by way of power punches for the most part for Yordenis Ugas, whereas Errol Spence would be more of a finesse style, boxer style counterpuncher. He would deliver punches that are hard punches, but in quick succession, quick combinations, in and out, and counter punching, waiting for Manny Pacquiao to attack so he could tatter him and pepper him with punches and gain the respect of Manny Pacquiao. That's what we saw Errol Spence do to Danny Garcia, right? He's the one that took the fight to Danny Garcia, therefore not allowing Danny Garcia to execute his game plan. Danny Garcia would have been successful on the inside, fighting in the inside of the pocket, whereas he wasn't allowed to go in because he felt Errol Spence's power early. He gave him too much respect. Errol Spence just countered him beautifully throughout that fight and even pressed the action. This is what Errol Spence would have posed. That's the threat he would have posed against Manny Pacquiao. He would have earned his respect, or we would have had a firefight. Manny Pacquiao would have come at him. Errol Spence would have picked them apart with moving, angles, and counterpunching. Manny Pacquiao has fought all these guys. He's fought Floyd Mayweather. He fought Juan Manuel Marquez. He fought Eric Morales. He's fought the new age of Keith Thurman and the Horns, which are the come-forward sloppy fighters. Keith Thurman is a good boxer with angles and mobility. He's fought these style fighters before. Juan Manuel Marquez, the counter-punching strategist and master that he was, as was Floyd Mayweather, with a little more height, a little more speed, and defense was his number one game. Manny Pacquiao has seen all this. He's seen the Hattons, he's seen the Cottos, he's seen the Mosleys, he's seen the Margaritos, he's seen them all. So Marco Antonio Barrera was another one that he faced. So he's seen these masters of the game, these boxers that have been fighting at the elite level, whereas Yordenis Ugas' resume, although he has that experience in the amateurs, his resume to date does not dictate a threat or does not pose much of a threat to what Manny Pacquiao has seen. That he's not going to present Manny Pacquiao with many problems that are going to create a puzzle for Manny Pacquiao, an unsolvable puzzle for Manny Pacquiao. It's just going to be a matter of strength and what does Manny Pacquiao have left in the tank. The fight itself is different than all these sparring videos. A lot is being made of these sparring videos. Of course, we saw leading to the news, prior to the news of Errol Spence announcing his injury and his withdrawal from the fight, there was a lot of videos that came out about Errol Spence's sparring and how he was getting hurt, how he was getting hit quite a bit in sparring, and he was having a tough go at it. Whereas Manny Pacquiao, it was being reported that he was knocking out his sparring partners, that he was hurting them, that he's in tip-top shape, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people were making a lot from those videos and from the bits of footage that were released. Also footage from Yordenis Ugas getting punched to where he goes through the ropes and falls outside of the ring. Those videos are out there as well. And they're tagging him as Manny Pacquiao style sparring partner, knocks Yordenis out of the ring and stuff. I mean, you're making a lot of it, right? And remember that there's strategy behind these sparring sessions. The coaches may very well call for their fighter to just defend, just move, just work on your angles. If they hit you, they hit you. Or, all right, now you're going to work on your counter punching. So just counter punch. You can't do this. You can't pressure. You can't clinch. So the trainers are going to have their strategy. They're going to have their plan. And if you happen to record a portion of a footage, it doesn't tell a portion of a sparring session. It doesn't tell the full story. So I always take those with a grain of salt. I watch, but it doesn't mean that that's what's going to translate into the ring come fight night. These guys are at the top of their game. Yordenis Ugas is one of them. Should he be successful tonight against the legendary Manny Pacquiao, this will be the biggest name on his resume, and it will solidify him as a who's who in the welterweight division, muddying the waters even more, or at least making it more interesting, right? Because now we'll have Yordenis Ugas as one of the top dogs in the welterweight alongside Errol Spence and Terence Crawford at the moment. Those two are the ones that everybody hails as the best, and then everybody else. And Manny Pacquiao on the back end of his career, of course, nonetheless doing spectacular things to still be fighting amongst the best. One perfect example is that when he was fighting the top names just a decade back, the fighters that are going to be in the co-main event were at the best point of their careers, respectively. That is Victor Ortiz and Robert "The Ghost" Guerrero. Both of those fighters were at their peak of their careers just about 10 years back. Manny Pacquiao is still there. These guys are going to be coming back after long layoffs. Each of them walking in with 6 defeats. That's going to be an interesting fight because they're both coming back into the ring. They never got to face each other in their prime, but why is it interesting? It's just interesting because of name, because of their resumes. Of the two fighters, Robert Guerrero has the better resume by far than Victor Ortiz. However, Victor Ortiz carried the bigger name because it was a bigger push for Victor Ortiz when he was in his prime, and especially leading to that big victory he had over Andre Berto, and then the debacle of a fight that he had against Floyd Mayweather. Robert Guerrero, of course, also fought Floyd Mayweather, lost to him, but he has the more decorated of the two resumes, having faced the better opposition of the two fighters. That's going to be an interesting fight and an interesting co-main event. But the point that I'm making is that when these two were at the peak of their career, who knows how they're going to look? But they're in the era of a Luis Collazo, who we just witnessed a week prior against Yordenis, and he called it a day. He ended up retiring after the fight. That fight didn't go the way that he wanted it to go. Didn't go out on a shield like he wanted to. The fight ended up stopping because of damage suffered by Collazo, and subsequently he ends up calling it a day as he stepped into the ring thinking that was going to be his last fight. At the end of the fight, he decided to proceed and hang the gloves up for good. So Stanionis, of course, an up-and-coming prospect and a really good fighter, Lithuanian fighter. So Good fights on this card. A lot of entertainment. Mark Magsayo is going to be fighting the undefeated Mark Magsayo, Filipino fighter, 22-0, walking in against Julio Ceja, who steps into the ring 32-4. That's gonna be a really, really good fight as well. Carlos Castro against Oscar Escandon will be another one of the interesting fights, and then the rest looks like some decent matchmaking on behalf of PBC. But those are the main fights to watch for, as far as I could see. Ortiz Guerrero. Let's see what they got left. Let's see what's left in the tank. We just saw Devin Alexander also try to make a comeback. He was unsuccessful in his return to the ring after a few years of a layoff. Victor Ortiz, Robert Guerrero, sure to be entertaining as far as to see what they got. Manny Pacquiao, of course, still at it, still fighting the top dogs, still trying to get his name and get his hands around this big title in the WBA, the fourth of the welterweight titles. Or one of the four of the welterweight titles. And Yordenis Ugas, of course, with this a victory over Manny Pacquiao tonight would cement him as one of the best welterweights today, and it would take his career to new heights. So, how does this play out? Manny Pacquiao, of course, dealing with the taller, lankier, heavier, harder puncher, and Yordenis Ugas. He's going to have to utilize his angles, his speed. Of course, the delivery of Yordenis Ugas is a lot slower than that of Keith Thurman. It's a lot slower than what Manny Pacquiao was preparing for than in Errol Spence, the threat that Errol Spence posed. So Yordenis Ugas definitely delivers a lot slower. He delivers in succession. He delivers flurries. He delivers in combinations, all usually accompanied by power. Manny Pacquiao, because of those gaps and what he was preparing for in an Errol Spence type fight, he may find success in that reset time that Yordenis Ugas will generate when he releases his punches in slower succession. Manny Pacquiao, all he has to do is do the Manny Pacquiao fight. How much is left in his tank? I don't know. But the wave that Manny Pacquiao creates, the in and out, the punches and bunches, the smothering attack that he has, the angles, that is going to pose a huge threat for Yordenis Ugas, and it throws any fighter off their game plan, as it's done his entire career for 71 previous fights. And Manny Pacquiao, that's the threat that he continues to bring. Keith Thurman suffered a knockdown in that first round, and he was quick to know that Manny Pacquiao was no joke. That's the Manny Pacquiao that we want to see tonight. And if he goes out and he secures this title against a solid Cuban fighter in Yordenis Ugas, he secures a title and he decides to ride off into the sunset as a champion, then so be it. That will be his 72nd professional fight and his 63rd victory professionally. If Yordenis Ugas is successful, Yordenis Ugas, of course, how does he find success against Manny Pacquiao? Eliminating the angles, peppering him. He has to be more active. He has to let his hands go. He cannot just stick to conserving energy as he's known to do. He utilizes his energy a lot different. He conserves a lot of energy, and he's very picky about his attack. He can't do that against a Manny Pacquiao. When Manny Pacquiao's coming in, he needs to hit. When Manny Pacquiao's going out, he needs to press forward. Keep Manny Pacquiao on the back foot. Keep him moving around rather than you be the one moving back and backpedaling, because Manny Pacquiao will pick him apart. Manny Pacquiao will pick Yordenis Ugas apart if Yordenis Ugas is on his back foot. Yordenis Ugas needs to pepper him on the way in and push forward to get Manny Pacquiao to move around the ring. Don't chase him. Just let him know every time he's coming in, he's not going to find success. Get Manny Pacquiao to switch his game plan and impose your power. That would be the Yordenis Ugas plan. Impose the power and control by spacing, by power, and by letting those hands go. He needs to let those hands go, and he needs to establish his height, his stature as a boxer. He needs to fight taller rather than fighting down to his opponent's height. And if he's able to solidify his stance in the fight, and he's able to impose his will in the fight, that's going to force Manny Pacquiao to switch his game plan. Of course, it's not going to be easy. You got to be on your A game against a Manny Pacquiao, even a Manny Pacquiao on the backstage of it, on the back end of his career. But I think Yordenis Ugas will find success with his power, because Manny Pacquiao at this stage, how much has he endured already? Who knows how the chin is at this point, if he's going to be able to handle too much more at the stage where he finds himself. And Yordenis Ugas, of course, he could pop. He just doesn't punch enough. So that would be the two strategies. Manny Pacquiao, angles, speed, in and out, smothering. That smothering attack, I think, will be enough for Manny Pacquiao to beat Yordenis Ugas. Of course, we'll see if Yordenis Ugas catches wind of this advice. Of course, his team way more prepared, and I'm sure they've already analyzed all these angles. But if anybody whispers into his ear as to maybe you should try this as plan C or plan D, start imposing your power. If his game plan doesn't work, then hey, I'll take the pat on the back for that one. So I leave you guys with that. It's been a while since I recorded. There's a lot of episodes in the back burner that I meant to put out and I didn't, so you will be getting them in a delayed fashion. Nonetheless, we'll continue putting out content. Certain delays, of course, always present themselves, but we're still here. I thank you guys for the ongoing support, for the ongoing love. Thank you guys, and have yourselves an amazing Saturday evening. Have yourselves an amazing time with family or friends, whoever you choose to watch the fight. If you choose to watch it alone, then enjoy it. This is going to be one that you don't want to miss, just out of respect to the legendary career of Manny Pacquiao. That's the best. I'm just going to tune in for that, and anything else that happens in the fight card, it'll be a bonus for me. Whether the Guerrero Ortiz fight turns out to be something like the Luis Colosso or Devin Alexander fights that we just saw last week, or if it turns out to be a phone booth type style fight, a knock 'em drag 'em type fight, that'll be entertaining in itself. Those will be bonuses. But just watching Manny Pacquiao one more time, possibly for the very last time, is enough reason to tune in. So I leave you with that. Thank you guys again for all the support, for all the love, and I'll check you guys out. I'll talk to you guys all soon on the upcoming episode. Take care.